That's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello. You. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, it's April 24th, 2025, so the final season of You came out. But that's not what I'm here to discuss today, but I thought it was funny. No. Even though for You, we're like almost done with the year. But today, I had to figure out this lighting. I'm using my other phone, so there's been some complications there. But welcome to The Wheel of Time, Book 2, The Great Hunt, by Robert Jordan. Now, non-spoiler, I mean, the series is really old, so I'd be surprised if you weren't spoiled. But then again, I know nothing really about this series, so I'm sure there are people that have never read it before. I'm 2 books in now, and I can't say that I'm exactly a fan of The Wheel of Time. When I read Malazan Book of the Fallen for the first time, I really enjoyed the first one. And when I got to Deadhouse Gates, I became a certified fan. I liked The Eye of the World. And I liked The Great Hunt. But I have yet to love one of these books. I've yet to really love any of the characters. I like a lot of them. I don't love any of them. I don't love this series. And I have to be honest about that. And I know there's going to be potentially, possibly fans of this series who love these books. And I am not trying to belittle or ruin the significance of the series. And maybe other people felt this way too on a first read. I don't know. But there's nothing here that really stands out for me in terms of falling deeply entrenched in love with this story. The world building remains excellent. The characters are well defined, but none of them have touched my soul, my heart, and maybe they're not meant to have yet. I mean, Robert Jordan has certainly spent time on these characters, but he hasn't spent a devoted amount of time to making me fall in love with them. Now, I did listen to Tudor Ramble, which is a way bigger, more important YouTube channel than mine, and they talked about this book. And I kind of get the two confused. But the one that really isn't vibing with it, I'm on his side to an extent. I don't feel you need to... I have not read any Brandon Sanderson work, so I can't speak to that, but he keeps bringing up The Way of Kings, or, that series by Brandon Sanderson, and now the very first book, or you have like a complete character arc in that one story, and of course that's definitely a way to do a story, but it's not the only way, and I don't think it is necessarily what I have to have happen. I don't need that immediate gratification, and this is why I suppose I'll see when I end the series how I ultimately feel about it overall. I understand that it's kind of a slow burn and a bit more subtle in terms of growth, change, development. I'm going to read all of them, whether I enjoy it or not, because I paid for them. So I'm going to read them. I'm not going to waste my money like that. And I also think it's good to be constructive when doing reviews. Now, obviously, I would never speak ill of the dead. Robert Jordan passed away, sadly. But, these are still a step above a lot of books that I've read. But I will say that the prose are sufficient, better than what I can write, but it is nothing phenomenal. And as I said, the characters are all likable, to me anyway. But I don't love a single one of them. And I'm hoping that can change. That's really the biggest thing here. I mean, this is one of the reasons why certain sci-fi books are so hard for me. Like I, Robot by Isaac Asimov, I reviewed that. And it's also a product of its time. it's not exactly its fault. I talked about this in that review, but, you know, that was a first of many things. So many of those things have been tropes now in the genre of sci-fi that it's hard to separate that from the work itself, which is an original, in terms of a lot of those ideas. But at the same time, that's mostly all the story is. Ideas. There's not a lot of character moments. I mean, you could probably pick a few, but the book's not really about that. It's about the world building. It's about the ideas that will make you think. And while I enjoyed that thought exercise, while I enjoyed that about the book, one, it's a product of its time, and I unfortunately live in a time where I've seen those tropes done and done again. It's not the book's fault, it's just the time that I grew up in, that I've seen it before. And, you know, of course I can't put that against the book. It's not unoriginal, it was the originator of a lot of those ideas. So, we're not talking about iRobot, but my point is, there's a lot of great world building here. There's a lot of great story beats that I can see becoming something phenomenal. But there's nothing here that has really grasped me itself within this novel. And I hear The Shadow Rising is one of the best books, maybe even the best book in the entire 14 lineup. So I'm hoping that after I get there that I can officially say that I'm a fan of The Wheel of Time. But as it stands, I have to be honest with all of you. Now, I know how much a series that someone loves. I love the Star Wars Expanded Universe. And I always love finding people that are reading it for the first time, and I always try to encourage them, even if they're camera shy, even if they never show their face, make some YouTube videos, or make an Instagram post, or make a Twitter post, or whatever you use, I don't care. But I always try to encourage sharing the experience, because once you, I mean, part of the fun of The Wheel of Time, like Malazan, right, it's like a reread. But you can only reread a story so much before it's like, it's never going to be that first or second time. You know, so you have to go find first reactions elsewhere so you can kind of relive the experience through them, I guess. And so I very much love seeing that with the expanded universe of Star Wars. So I very much understand with Wheel of Time fans always being kind of excited to see somebody new get into it, which is why I feel so bad about the things I have to say about this book in terms of just thinking it's fine, I guess. But I also have to be honest about my thoughts. I'll be right back. As it goes, non-spoiler, I mean, we got Rand, the bland man, back. Perrin's hardly in this book. He's in it, but not like a lot. Matt's there. He just kind of exists. Moraine is like barely in the book as well. You get more Egwene though, more Nenevine, and some other new characters. And Rand has to go, and Loyal, whatever. He's back. He's cool. And they have to go find this horn. Yeah. And then that's the adventure, basically. There's some other world building things here and there. We'll get to that in spoilers, but that's the gist. Like I said, very subtle character development. Like we do move things around a little bit here, but it's nothing substantial. You're not going to get any like specific character moment that you can like really cling to here, which is fine. But as I said, I'm not loving it. So I'm hoping that with the next two books, I do. Otherwise, it's going to have to be an unfortunate, because I'm going to read all of them. But if I don't like it by book 4, then I feel like I'm just going to be ragging on something that people love, which is not something I want to do. But I also paid for all of them, so I'm going to finish it. So, but yeah, I'm hoping to love. I like, but I don't love. Hoping that will change. I'm getting into spoilers. If you don't want any spoilers, or if you read this book 1,000 times because it's an older series, because this ended when I was 12. So, but it's been going on since the 90s, or the, late 80s? I forget. But I think it was the 90s. But I wasn't born until 2001, so. Anyway. Spoiler time. I don't have a ton a few, but we start with a guy named Bors, and we keep hearing about these Shannaren, like this culture of Shannaren people. We also, I mean, we've heard it before, I think, but the Forsaken, which are 13 of the most powerful wielders of the One Power, of who I think also work for the Dark One. I also just started writing down some like little world building tidbits that I'm sure we'll get into in other books, but the Ethan Mir, which are the Sea Folk. If you hear that, that's the shower. Apologies about that. Rand is being annoying, as per usual with Rand the Bland Man. Rand is also being a dick to his friends, because he doesn't want to, hurt his friends. It's a classic trope, so he just kind of starts bagging on them and treating them like trash instead of just explaining the situation. He just decides, I'll just push them away, because that's the healthy thing to do. That being said, he's a teenager, so we can't really put it too much on him. I mean, we can, but he's still a kid. He's still learning. And I am saying that because I'm getting old, because next year, in 2 months for you, I will be 25. My brain will have stopped developing. Life, man. But as it goes, we also see that there are 3 more false dragons, and we get a little bit more of an exploration of the White Tower, which I'm hoping we'll get more deep dive of in the next book. We learn that few queens in all the realms have ever been Aes Sedai. And the few that have been have regretted it. We do get a little bit more, I mean, she's not in a lot of this book, but when we do get Moiraine, we get stuff from her POV, which is cool. And they really try to push, during this section of the book, for, they're talking not necessarily with Rand around, but they want Rand to, accept his role as the Dragon Reborn. But of course, who doesn't wish to have a following? Because the thing is about all these false dragons, these false prophets, these, antichrists, you might say, is they all claim to be this thing, and they want the worship, they want the power. Rand's the only one who really doesn't. He doesn't want the worship, and he doesn't even really want the power. He just wants to go back to his village and live a peaceful life, but that is not what life has in store for him. So, Rand wishes not to be used. He doesn't like that everyone's kind of pulling. I mean, even Moiraine, who I know is more of a sympathetic, good person in the grand scheme. At least that's what I gather now. But she very much, she's trying to have things go a certain way. Other people want things to go a certain way with him, and he is sick of being used so much. We also meet this guy named Hurin, the Sniffer. Now, I did not research this beforehand, but I would imagine the Silmarillion is probably out by now. I'm just curious about that, because Children of Hurin, I know that Eye of the World was an homage to Tolkien. Did he just directly use the name? Guys, I don't see Hurin too often. I mean, I don't read every single fictional work out there, but I don't see that name used too often, so it just got me thinking. And the Sniffers, like, they can, like, sniff, like, death, sort of. Violent, like, I'm kind of confused. They can, like, sniff when evil's been around, but, like, or violent thoughts, and it's confusing to me. But he basically could just track things magically. I don't think about it too much. I didn't really care about these characters, but Chengu and Nidio were traitors, possibly. Ingtar, who is this, I think he's a Shannaren soldier man, he tells Rand if he passes, if he, passes away, that Rand is in charge of his soldiers. And then, again, this was a subtle thing in the story, but, Rand tells a half-truth to Matt and Perrin about channeling. Like he won't admit that he is the Dragon Reborn. So he tells them, like, yes, I have the ability to channel. So they assume him to be just another false dragon. They tell him all he's got to be careful about going insane and stuff. We get a lot more with the character named Varen, as well as Egwene and Nenevie. We also get this whole thing that is really kind of interesting and puts some things into perspective if you want to be a maximalist. I got that term from Joe Bongiorno of the Star Wars Supernatural Encounters acclaim. But also not just from him, I got it from Abel G. Pena as well. If you know who these people are, the people that were part of the Star Wars Expanded Universe back in the day. But being a maximalist when it comes to fiction is just meaning when you are reading your fiction or watching your fiction, how can you include everything and have it make sense and not have it be a contradiction? So I got this thought as the story kept going along. What if, now I haven't watched it, I'm not defending it, I'm not destroying it, I'm simply offering an alternative peace of mind if you were to go into it. On Amazon, of course, they are going through the Wheel of Time TV show. So my hypothesis, because I know a lot of people are dissatisfied with the story, but what if, for the sake of argument, that the entire story that you see on Amazon, now this obviously isn't their intention, this is basically cope, but I think it could also be seen as a valid interpretation if you really wanted to. So you can have your, stories and not have it feel tarnished. What if the Wheel Prime, as I like to call it, is just another timeline? A possible what-if scenario. Because we see within this very story different timelines / a multiverse of different potential outcomes that could have happened. One where Rand's married, or this happened, or this happened. What if the Wheel of Time TV show is one of those outcomes? And instead what we get is what we get in the books, and that's the true, actual telling of events. That's what actually went down. Everything else is just a possibility within the framework, you know what I mean? I think it's something fun to think about. We again get Bezelmon back and Rand dreaming again. And the only thing of significance, because it kind of felt like, again, here's my threat, here's me threatening you, here's me saying the same thing again and again and again until we're both dead. There's my Spider-Man Sam Raimi reference for you. But the only thing of note I noticed here was that he said, no more reincarnations. This time, this is it. This is going to be it for all time. If you die this time, it's over forever. You will not be reborn again. There's a possibility because Egwene gets, dreams of Rand, which could just be that she kind of likes him. But there's a possibility that she might be a dreamer, like a fortune teller, perhaps. Also, this was probably the most subtle bit of character growth I'd seen, but it does show a bit of leadership for Rand in terms of where he could go in the future, which I have no idea, of course. All I know is that the last few books are written by Brandon Sanderson. Outside of that, I really know nothing about this series. I don't know. So, but Rand shows empathy to Hurin when he's kind of freaking out. And it's just this little subtle thing, but it is this level of maturity that I don't think we really see in Rand, and it's a bit of growth there, though not overtly stated. In a lot of other stories, they'd be like, oh, wow, look at this crescendo event of this character arc. But here it's just kind of there, and if you notice it, you notice it, and if you don't, you don't. So for that, I appreciated that a lot. There's a wonderful scene between Lan and Moiraine. There's another scene between Sheriam, I'm probably butchering that name, and Nenevie with, I think this is at the White Tower. I'm kind of forgetting now. But when she has to go through all these, trials, she just get, these 3 different visions to kind of figure out herself, or whatever, to see if she can become what she's meant to become. But I thought that scene was really well done. washed clean of yourself. Yeah, so this was the best scene in the book so far. Of the series so far. She has to go through these 3 different trials. And one of the last ones is she envisions herself married and happy with Lan. And she has to deny herself, deny that happiness in order to be what she's meant to become. It's really poignant, I think. It's really heartbreaking. He is begging her. You feel it like leap off the page. He's begging her to stay. And for her, like, obviously it is like a dream, but is it a dream? Or is it like she jumped into another timeline? Like she inhabited another version of herself? I don't really know. But it feels real. And it's like, what are you talking about? I love you, don't go. And it's like that scene is like the most I felt out of this entire series so far. It was the most, my heart actually went, wow, this series can actually leap into motion for me. So that was something. And it's the best scene in the book by far. To me, anyway. I know there's a big crescendo at the end of the book, but for me, it was this scene here. I live for the small moments. I live for dialogue and conversations that just get you going. So for me, this was the peak of the book for me. But it was a great scene. We learned that Logain, who in the last book was one of the false dragons, prophesizing, gaining and falling, the Aes Sedai had taken him and gentled him, which gives me a bit of a similar sense to neutered, but it's just that they took away his ability to use the power, and so he's kind of docile in the White Tower now. Also, Tom's alive. He didn't die. I was wrong and stupid. I should have known better. But something we do learn is that Owen, his nephew, had been gentled in the past. He was also a false dragon. But he was unhappy and died. Now, the book isn't explicit about this, but I'm fairly certain that what I'm meant to gather from that is that he killed himself. Now, I could be wrong about that, but that seems to be the interpretation. I could be completely missing the mark there. But if so, it makes a lot of sense why Tom would be quite adversarial. There's also a really fun scene where Rand goes to this party. There's this guy named Barthane who's trying to do this Game of Thrones political back and forth with Rand, saying more over than what you're actually saying. You know what I mean? Those who know, you know. But Rand's actually just being legit, oh no, I've never met the king. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Just I see. It was a whole thing of this guy's trying to play the game and Rand's just not here for it and he doesn't really understand it. But then Barthane's thinking he is playing the game, so it's just this whole back and forth. It's really fun. Only other really thing big of note is that Ingtar reveals the reveal near the end was quite powerful, which is that he indeed is a dark friend. But I think the more powerful thing is that he sacrifices himself. And then it's nothing we haven't heard before, nothing hasn't been done before, and it isn't even written that particularly well. But still, I think it sometimes simplicity is all you need. It ran simple, I don't think it really matters that you've been this. Right now you are defending us and sacrificing yourself for us. In your last moments, what are you really? I guess. And Ingtar tries to, I guess, kind of redeem himself or, have at least some sort of light amidst the darkness that he's had in his last moments. So I quite enjoyed that. I thought it worked well. I thought the twist was good. And, I'm glad that the Dark Friends aren't just all mustache twirling villains. They're all just people. It's kind of like the One Ring in, Lord of the Rings. Boromir was never a villain, he's us. We would all like to think that we're an Aragorn or a Samwise, but most likely we're Boromir. or Frodo. You know, none of us are impervious to such things. So I think that worked very well, and I quite enjoyed that section. Of course, Islamon once again goes up against Rand, but this time it's a fight up in the sky, and of course Rand succeeds. But this is where I really started to think, okay, maybe this is a red herring, because you got either this book sucks and people are wrong, or there's something to it. We'll see. But my suspicion is that Besamon, who's been kind of angled to be the same dark presence we saw at the opening of Eye of the World, is not Shaitan. We've been led to believe that, but now I'm just starting to think he's a really powerful dark friend. Or something else separate entirely. I don't think he is Shaitan now, because he's now been defeated twice. That's going to get really old if we're still defeating this guy at book 13 or book 14, unless he's not the guy, unless he's not the true evil source. So now I'm thinking that it's not the case with that. So we'll see if my prediction remains true in that front. Another thing I forgot to mention entirely is the girl power stuff we have in here, which is awesome, because Egwene gets captured, Egwene, and it is Nenevine and I forget the other girl's name, but they both go to help her out, and then they all get each other out. And I don't think Rand comes by to save anybody at all, or anyone else for that matter. It's just them three. Unfortunately, saving Egwene still required some suffering on her part prior to the arrival of that help, so she certainly seems a bit darker now. Does that mean she's going to turn bad? Not necessarily. I certainly hope not. But it definitely means she's going to have an edge to her that she didn't have when she lived in her little village. So that'll be interesting to see as the series progresses what that might turn into. But overall, those are my thoughts on The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. When we return, we will have The Dragon Reborn and Shadows Rising. Will I finally fall in love with the series? I don't know. But I guess you'll have to subscribe to find out. But whether you are a mega fan of this series, a veteran, or somebody that's trying to see if they want to get into it themselves, thank you all so much for watching. If you'd like to see, give a thumbs up. I know that's very cliche and old now to say, and maybe subscribe. I mean, if you're into fantasy, I've already reviewed Malazan, Book of the Fallen. I plan on reading so much more, from Realm of the Elderlings to the Janny Wirtz books to, you know, the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie, because I've read none of those, so I'm going to have a fresh perspective on that, you know, apart from all the people that reviewed it back in the day, because I've never touched any of these books, to the John Gwynne works, you know, so much in store, from, I can't say his name, the Polish guy who wrote the Witcher books. I plan on reading those at some point. I've been going through Elric of Melniboné by Michael Moorcock, and there's just so much that I have planned on top of, like, Dune and Hyperion and other sci-fi works. Like, I'm in it for the long haul, unless I die early. You're gonna have a lot of content from me to see. So if that sounds at all interesting, then maybe give me a subscription. But that's pretty much all. So until next time, guys, the wheel weaves as the wheel weaves. Until next time, bye-bye.